Hello there, Ray here. Today I made this simple dungeon spawner generating flying machine which I would like to show to you. If a block formation is pushed into a very precise location in chunks that haven't been explored yet by the player, it is possible that once those chunks have been explored by the player, that those blocks will be converted over into a dungeon as well as a spawner inside of it. This was first shown by Cobble PC as well as Panda4994. One of the project members, Omeganix, wrote a really amazing program to help us find dungeon clusters on the project server. So what a cluster is just one place where a player can AFK in the center and be able to activate multiple spawners from that location. Now he allowed me to be able to publish this program publicly, so I will link it down in the description. I won't really explain what this program all does. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I may do that in a later video if you have any questions. So once you have used this program and you found a cluster of dungeons which you want to generate in your world, then it's time to use these devices to come in and push those blocks in for you so that you can generate those dungeons. So these flying machines that I designed are compact, simple, and easy to use. And here is the 1.11 plus version, so you can use this one in 1.12 as well. And here are the 1.10 as well as 1.9 version, since our server is still in version 1.10. Now to use these, it's quite simple. What you want to do is just build this up exactly 10 or exactly 12 chunks away from where you want it to stop. So this piece here will exactly move 12 chunks in that direction. This allows you to use this with a render distance of 10. Now that's very important because if you're standing here, you're going to be loading 10 chunks in that direction, and you don't want to load the chunks in where you want this machine to end up in. So by having 12 chunks, this allows the machine to be able to travel even further. Now you could do this with, you could send the machine 11 chunks, but by having 12 chunks, you can send two of these right beside each other and essentially generate two dungeons, which will make more sense in a later video. But the way that you would use these is that the machine is all built up, and you would want to come in here, and this is the device that will send it off. And what we have is just an updating device, which will update the engine, which is over here. And then we have a device which will update this engine, which is faster. And then we have a clock here which will time it. So what you will do is you just, when it's time to generate the dungeon, you just flick this lever and it will send this part off first. And then after a while, all these pieces will eventually get taken out of this hopper here. When they all leave, then it will update this engine. This engine was a little bit faster and it will eventually catch up with this piece over here. Now by timing it just correctly, it will move exactly 12 chunks. This will allow you to easily be able to decide where to build this just by figuring out where your dungeon is first and then coming in and going backwards and placing in this. You can see the machine came in here and it pushed this slime block over top of this and it just stopped the whole machine. So it's able to make the flying machine quite compact for having only one engine. This was by minimizing the number of blocks for pushing. So it's important to have a ceiling on your dungeon as well as a floor, and you also need some walls. Now to do the walls, I came in here and had individually pushing pieces so that I could push pieces of the wall without having to push large amounts of blocks all at once. Now this is possible because each of these gaps here count towards one of the 5 gaps that you need to have in the wall of the dungeon, and you can have some gaps over here, or you can even choose to have the gaps in the back. But by doing this, I didn't have to push so many blocks in at once. Now the other important thing is to have blocks underneath to change the type of dungeon you want to have. So it says, let's say you normally push it in and it would be a zombie dungeon, and you want to have a spider dungeon. So by doing this, you can place down some blocks underneath here, and this will change the type of the dungeon which will generate. Now by doing this, the way I did this is by having blocks hooked onto a slime block from underneath, and they get pushed along down below, and you can add blocks on here as well as over here, and you can even add blocks in the center too. Now the thing you only have to worry about is the push limit, and I figured out a way to get around the push limit by having this segment over here have a slime block on it, so it is also pushing this pieces over here. And by doing this, this piece will actually update first, and it will move these pieces first, and then this piece over here will push, and here will update secondly. It's a bit confusing, but the update order allows me to be able to push this whole platform even with slime blocks inside of it. And I also figured out that you can do the same thing for like the slime block here, because these two sides will actually push before this middle one will push. And this will allow this piston to actually be able to push all these blocks even though they're over top of the push limit. I figured out a really cool way to push them as well, just by having some observers put into a piece of 3 of them. This will update all 3 of them at once. Really nice. Did the same thing up here, and I just hold or have a couple extensions, and I'm pushing these center pieces from the center. Over here, it's quite compact. We have some pistons which are just pushing these different smaller segments, and eventually we're putting this down kind of like a pyramid, and it ends up right here at the engine. Now the engine is pretty cool as well, because the engine actually is pretty simple. You just put a redstone block there, and by the engine being pushed forward, this piston will get updated once this segment moves forward, and this will allow the engine to continue on. So the engine is actually part of the segment, which also reduces blocks. So it's quite compact. And now this version here can do a 9x9 dungeon. And over here we have a version that is like a 7x7, and you can convert this to a 7x9 either direction. You can see there's extra blocks here, and that's just to easily convert it from a 9 to a 7. But you can see I just shortened it up quite a bit. Now if you really want to compact it, I have also made a 7x7 version over here. Now with this version, I try to compact it a little bit more, and this only works for a 7x7, and it's kind of ugly the way the limestone is set up, but it works, and it's kind of goofy the way the updates order is, but you can see that it will eventually actually move all these pieces into place, and it's pretty small too. As you can see, it only has a couple blocks, and actually the whole thing can fit inside of about one chunk, so that way you can easily pack one behind another one if you want to. Meganex's dungeon finding program will find up to 8 dungeons in one cluster, so you could use one of these smaller designs to really pack them in there to get all 8 of those dungeons. And he also did a video where he actually generated 8 dungeons, so you can see how he did it as well if you want to. I'll put that down in the description. So on the other side here is the 1.9 and 1.10 versions. I built these designs first, and it took me about 20-30 minutes. I was actually surprised at how fast I figured out how to build this. And this design over here, the 1.10 or the 1.11 ones, I designed in about 2 or 3 minutes. It was quite easy. But this design is pretty cool as well. It's quite compact. I figured out a way to push all the all the slices of the floor at once by coming in here and having these pistons kind of in a U shape, and they all get pushed in at once around this redstone block. Then they all update because this block here will update. Now update this piston here, and this piston will update these side ones. This will allow them to all push their slices. And the way that this setup is very similar to the other side, where the push limit for the center one is over top of 12. So I have this line block here, which is holding some of its pieces, and this side will move, and this will allow, once this side moves, then this one can move, just to do with update order, and this will allow you to also be able to place more blocks underneath without having to add any more devices on here. So that's pretty cool. And the same thing goes to the top. I did the same thing where it comes in and they all get updated. And I came a little over top of the push limit for the center one. So I come over here and have slime block hold one of the pieces for it. And then that's because in the center I have the piece that comes down and pushes the walls in. The walls are very similar as well. They're just getting updated and moved along. Then all these segments come over here. These are getting updated by redstone blocks. Come over here and here, and eventually come over to the engine. Engine is quite simple, and what we have is just you put a redstone block on top of this engine, and you remember to remove this chest, and then once you depower this, then this segment will move first, and then same thing as the other side, the items will move out of here, and this is how many items you need, and then this side will update. So let's just do that. That side takes off, and then once all these items have been removed, then this faster engine will catch up with it. You can see how the pistons are coming along and getting updated and moving the whole segment along, and then this will just come in here and jam up the system. Do the same thing as that one over there. You put it exactly 12 chunks away, and this will allow you to be able to reach your destination. So as always, when doing something this complicated in your survival world, you want to first test it in a creative world, and you also want to make sure to make backups of your survival world. But I will put a world download of this world here in the description. If you want to check it out, then you can see exactly how to build these up. So if you found this interesting, show me the like. If you'd like to see more crazy contraptions like this, subscribe. And if you have any questions, be sure to comment. Bye bye!